do I get the link for this thing? Let's go to YouTube. Oh, there it is there. Let's go ahead and plug this on Twitter. All right. Oh, come on, Twitter. Live streaming. Sick. All right, what's going on? So we launched Heather's website today, or not today, a couple days ago, and we used the Webflow native slider, and you can get pretty good results from it, but it's really designed to show like one slide at a time, and to show 3 slides at a time like this, you kind of have to do some hacks. And you'll see it's CMS connected, but once we get to the end, we have this empty space hanging here, and there's really no way I found with the Webflow native slider to get around that. So today I'm going to focus on rebuilding a CMS slider in Webflow with SwiperJS. So SwiperJS is over here, and we'll go ahead and get started. Got a little Webflow project right here, and there's loud music outside. That's the mailman. Cool, or the mailwoman. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to drop in a collection list, and we'll set our source to these fighters. Not going to be the same pictures today, but that's okay. And now this collection list is essentially going to be like our swiper wrapper here. So let's go ahead and drop in an image, and we'll just pull this from our fighters like that. And now the main thing, so this is going to be our slide. So let's go ahead and call this, I'll just call this WB slide like that. And this will be WB swiper wrapper. And I'm using different class names here than what the documentation specifies because I want to write my own CSS. I don't want to use the Swiper CSS today. Sweet, looks like I have 8 viewers. I don't know who they are. Maybe there's something in chat. I'm getting used to this OBS setup. Duncan and Rojas. Did I pronounce that right? Okay, I got the chat up now. Daniel, what's going on? Thank you guys for stopping in. Appreciate that. Go ahead and ask any questions if you got anything. But if not, then I'll just keep going here. And so, how do I best want to explain this? I mean, let's go ahead and like get a swiper setup going before we really do anything else. So let's hop over to the documentation here, and the very first thing we need to do is install. And this is to install it with npm, which I would probably do if this was on a production website. But for teaching, I'm going to go via CDN. And so the thing I like about npm is that you can like import modules as you want them. So if you just want navigation and pagination, and you can basically like reduce the size of the JavaScript that you're shipping with these modules. And the most tutorials I see with Webflow and Swiper use this approach right here, which you get the CSS, that Swiper CSS here, and then the JavaScript here. And the thing I don't like about this CSS is that it ships a bunch of CSS that we don't need, and also CSS that is, just then we're going to have to overwrite it anyway. So this is the minified version. I just had a question about minification the other day, actually. You can't just rename the file. You got to run it through minification. But anyways, this is what the unminified version is. And so we can see like these are the CSS properties that are going to be applied to our swiper or our slider if we just chuck this link tag in the head and forget about it. But we can just rewrite this all in Webflow and make sure that our slider is the same. So the big thing to know is like, okay, we have this swiper element, we have this swiper wrapper, and then here's the slide here. So these are the standard swiper classes here: swiper wrapper, swiper, and swiper slide. And so I can see on the slide here, we've got flex shrink a 0, width 100%, height 100%, position relative. I'm just gonna like try and pick and choose a couple of these as best I can, and hopefully it works. And if it doesn't get there, then it doesn't get there. But anyways, so let's go ahead on the swiper wrapper. I think they had position relative as well as on the slide here, and the slide had its flex sizing set to none. So let's come up to the wrapper here and give that display flex, and we can see all these displayed across on the row. But once I set these to none, they're just going to take up as much space as the original file size is. And I'm not going to specify the width on the slide here because I'm going to do this with Swiper. So I'm going to tell Swiper like I want 3 slides per view, I believe is the name of the property there. But if we come back over to the CSS, Then in swiper wrapper, we got relative. Okay, I'll add these 100% if I think we need them later. There's a z index of 1 here. Yeah, let's just go ahead and see if we can just initialize swiper with what we have. Let's see what it does. So back in the documentation, I'm going to use this module type syntax here. So we'll just grab that, and what I'll do is come into the page settings, and in the head tag, I'll drop that. And now I'm actually going to cut this, because what I want to do is run this on a local dev server so that I can make changes as I go. So this is Visual Studio Code, and I'll go ahead and zoom in here, and all I did was create a folder and a file called index.js. And what we'll do is we'll paste that code. And so here we're importing the swiper module, and let's just make sure that we get that by console logging it. And I'm not going to initialize the swiper yet, but this code will be useful. What did I call it? Like WB swiper wrapper, or WB swiper, I think. And then we need to pass an options object. But I'm going to go ahead and comment this out right now and save. I'm going to click go live here. This is the live server extension that essentially starts a local development server, and I can run this in Webflow. It's only going to work on my machine, but for testing purposes, it's great. So I just open that up, and I'll copy this address in the top left here, and we'll come back into Webflow and set the source equal to what we grabbed there. Hey Heather, swiping right. Yeah, I don't know if you saw at the beginning, but I'm rebuilding this swiper for you, baby. Mohammed, let's go. Hey, also for you, baby. All right, let's go here, and I'm gonna publish and make sure that we get something happening here. So let's check this out and open up Inspector, and we can see, okay, like swiper is being imported correctly, so that's good. Nothing's actually happening here though, so let's go ahead and try to initialize this. So when I comment that out, I'm pretty sure this is gonna fail. If I refresh, what's going on here? So we just logged that again. I'm going to clear my console, but I'm not getting any warnings or errors. So let me make sure that I named that correctly. Coming back here, this is WB, oh, I said slider, not swiper. Let's call it swiper. And I'm gonna have to republish as a result. Okay. And let's come back here, refresh. Okay, and yes, we did get an error. It's telling me this funky error, failed to execute get computed style on window parameter 1, not of type element. So what's going on here is Swiper can't find the stuff that it needs to create the swiper. And as I have been digging through the documentation here, we understand the standard HTML layout, right? Like Swiper, this is our collection list wrapper. Swiper wrapper is essentially our collection or CMS list. And each slide is each CMS item. And we'll get to pagination and buttons in a moment. But I'm not going to bother with putting any explicit widths or heights on the slider element yet. And here is how it talks about initializing Swiper. So we've already done the basic thing that we need to do here, but we need to specify some of the elements since we're not using the Swiper standard CSS. So what I'll come and do here is come to the API. And the documentation talks a lot about like if you're going to write your own CSS. So let me find that. And they don't really have a good instructions on if you want to write your own swiper without the swiper CSS. It's these red ones here. Anyway, so we have slide active class, slide class, and it says by changing classes, you will also need to change swiper CSS to reflect changed classes. So I'm not going to do anything with the active class right now, but we can see definitely on the slide class, we're going to need to tell swiper like use this slide class instead of your default one. And if I copy this and find, this is used actually in a couple places. So if I'm changing the swiper CSS, I need to rewrite the CSS in Webflow, or just however I want to write my CSS, as slide active class, slide next class. What else do we have? Slide previous class, slide visible, and the wrapper class. So the big ones here are the slide class and the wrapper class. So let's come back into Webflow, and I'm going to specify the slide class. And this is just WB swiper slide. What did I actually call it? I think that's what I called it. And wrapper class, see if GitHub, I'm a GitHub Copilot code warrior. So swiper wrapper and WB slide. What do we have? WB swiper wrapper, that one's good. And let's Just delete that. Okay. So, okay. We've got that renamed. Let's see if we still get our error. I'm refreshing and I don't get the error, and this slider is working now. So we have Swiper without writing any, or without importing their CSS, and really without writing too much in Webflow other than applying flexbox and no flex sizing. So now, of course, we want 3 slides instead of 1, and we probably want to loop this thing like it's now at the end, I think. So all we have to do then is start working on our swiper option. So if I set loop to true, let's just make sure that this makes our swiper work now. And I'm going to get rid of this console log. I'll go ahead and refresh, clear the console, and oh, I can loop the other way, and it indeed works. Now, something that's weird is it's not loading the what's showing off over here. And I think, is that as a result of the container or the swiper? So I'm just going to inspect. I have my list here. I have the item, and it looks like this is, it's like the way Swiper works is it's appending or prepending items, because if I swipe left, now that one is second and this one is first now. So there's actually nothing like in the DOM to the left here to even show. So it's a combination of errors, and one is that like I'm using a container and padding here. So let's just drag this thing out of all of that, and we can delete all that. And I'm going to add some padding on the top. I think this is an old, older version of client first that I'm using here. And we'll just add some padding like that. Publish. And we'll get that kind of full bleed effect that we're looking for. Okay, so we've got that going. Let's go ahead and apply the breakpoints now. Swiper gives us access to these breakpoints parameter, and that takes its own options object. And what's Webflow's desktop? It all it percolates up rather than cascading down. So if we're going to do this like in Webflow, then let's go ahead and find 992 is the smallest desktop breakpoint. So at 992, we want our slides per view to be 3. I think we're going to need 4 with the size of, well, let's go with 3 for now. And some divisor of 8. And see what else GitHub Copilot gives us. 768, I think is the right one. 2, and then for mobile, 320. 1 and 12. Cool. So this is published and that is changed. So let's see if we get our slides per view now. And we do. It's kind of starting to load, and then before the swiper JavaScript starts running is when it actually resizes these things. So that's, you know, if this is in your above the fold section or your hero section, like that the first thing is going to be viewed, you might want to do something to keep these not visible until the swiper code actually loads. If anybody in the chat wants to see how to do that, happy to go through that. But for here, you know, let's assume that this is loading lower in the page like it is on Heather's website. We can see it's not actually the first thing. It is kind of down here. So probably something that we actually will want to get into. But yeah, now our swiper is working, and we've got this full bleed kind of look going on. So I think it looks pretty good. What else? If I come out here, so it's adapting in size. That's nice. Yeah, I'm liking this. I think next we'll start working on pagination, and then we'll work on button previous and button next. Hey, Sashin, great. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. What else is going to go down here? You know what we could do is probably it doesn't make that much sense for, like right now it's trying to maintain the aspect ratio of the images at 1:1, which, yeah, maybe is fine. Yeah, let's go with it for now. Let's work on some pagination. So I'm going to drop a div in here, and we'll call this WB slider. Man, I keep getting this wrong. Pagination, like that. And I'm actually going to wrap that. So Command Option G, wrap in a div. And we'll call this WB swiper controls, I guess. Controls sounds good. And drop another div in there. And this is going to be our button wrapper. WB swiper button wrap, like that. And so we have pagination, and I'm going to put flexbox on the controls here. And we'll go ahead and set this to space between. And our pagination, we're just going to have little dots in there. So let's drop in, do I want to use divs or buttons? I guess it makes sense to use a button. Not a Webflow button though. Let's use a custom element. And we'll go ahead and set this setting to be a button. And we will call this WB Swiper pagination button. What a terrible class name. That's okay though. And let's make 2 of these. Hey Shane, thanks for stopping in. Yeah, let me know. You know, we can go over minification if you want. I saw you had a question about that. Anyways, pagination button. So this is going to apply the default browser button style. So I don't want any. It's actually applying the Webflow empty class to it as well, which is what gives us like a clickable area on canvas. But I'm going to give these all 0, and then we'll just specify an explicit width and height. So let's do 1 rem by 1 rem for now. I think that's good. And we'll go ahead and make this some sort of color like gray. That's not showing up. We'll do this black, but it's too black. So let's go ahead and make it kind of more subtle. All right. It still gives me this dotted line sometimes, even though I've specified an explicit width and height and no padding. I don't know why Webflow's doing that. Maybe if I set it to block. No. That's kind of a bummer. But anyways, pagination, we'll set it to flex. And on the controls, I want to also center the Y. So let's center that. And here I'm going to give it an isActive combo class. And the isActive combo class needs a nice color. So let's give it this blue or cyan. And just moving on here, I'm kind of just farting around in Webflow and not showing you guys anything useful, I know. But that's what Webflow's all about, farting around. So, oops, 1 rem. And we'll come back over here. Let's get this pagination working. All right, time to go back into work mode. But I do want to wrap these controls in something a little bit nice. So like a padding global. And then we'll contain these as well. Let's give that a medium container. Okay, we've got those in there. We have our Swiper pagination buttons. Now, let's go to Swiper and check out how to start working with pagination. Navigation, I think pagination is actually before that. No, events. Oh, look over here. I got a tree over here that I can use. So we have the bullet class, the bullet element you can supply. Basically what Swiper is going to do is it's going to remove our elements anyways and then generate its own pagination bullets. So we're just building those things in Webflow to apply the correct styles and basically write our own CSS so that we don't have Swiper's basic CSS, which is going to be those little blue dots, and then we're just going to have to overwrite it in Webflow anyways. I'm seeing some questions in the chat. So low-key, I'm struggling with the new Webflow UI. Yeah, man, when I just had to apply Flexbox there, I was a little bit worried that I was going to get it right. Realizing if I need to learn more CSS, minification would be a cool convo. Feel free to show what I sent on Twitter. Cool, man. Thank you. Duncan says, I suppose you can also style the slide items in Webflow to mimic the JavaScript setup. Yeah, you can. The main thing I want to make sure is that we have one source of truth in any time that I've done web development, like whether it's the database or the CMS or your CSS or whatever, like try to keep everything localized. And so like if I change something in Webflow, I don't want to have to change it in the code if I can avoid that. You can't always avoid it. So I see what you're saying. But what I was thinking of when I was talking about height on the slider is I could just apply like a max width of like 25 rem. Sorry, not max width, max height. And that way, like the slides will never go bigger than that, but then I'd have to change the images to cover, and then we'd have cropping issues. And so I was just like, I can get to that later. It's not too important for the lesson, but appreciate the comment. And Huddy says, WebBay, when the FinSuite slider going to be released? Man, we are working on it. Webflow released their V2 APIs, and all of the stuff that we architected around V1 is like we're seeing a lot of performance issues. So that's kind of, I don't want to say much more on that, but we are working on it, and it's going to be very cool. At least I think so. But the kind of this change from the V1 designer extension APIs to the V2 has really kind of thrown a wrench in our release schedule, I guess I would say. Maybe not thrown a wrench, but it just has created some delays. Can you go over real quick how we are overriding CSS from Swiper? I missed the beginning. We're overriding it by not using the Swiper CSS. So this is the Swiper CSS. If you just take from the documentation and chuck this in your browser, then this is all going to be applied to your Webflow project. So I am purposefully using different class names than what's in the Swiper CSS here and just writing it myself. So for example, Swiper slide here, most YouTube tutorials on using Swiper with Webflow say, apply this Swiper slide class and then maybe use a combo class or overwrite in the page settings. If you come to our page settings, you'll see we're not importing any CSS. We're just importing this JavaScript module, which is running on my local server right now. But there's no CSS in here either. I'm just importing Swiper from their module file right here. So this is the Swiper JavaScript code. And the CSS is all being written in Webflow. So if I come to web-based slide here, then the sizing is set to none, position relative. So I'm just kind of like picking and choosing the CSS that I think is appropriate from the Swiper CSS. And there may be some things like that if you want to go one-to-one, that's probably going to be your safest bet. But you can see they're like setting box sizing to content box here. Like, not sure why they're doing that. And we also have, there's like some sort of touch CSS that probably helps with mobile or something. Yeah, here, touch action, pan Y, pan X. So just, yeah, take this with a grain of salt. This is how I can get basic stuff to work pretty well in browser, but you may want to experiment a little bit more than I would. So that's how we are doing that. Anyways, where was I? Let's get pagination working. So I'm going to get the bullet class here, and notice the default class name is this Swiper pagination bullet, but we don't have that class name anywhere in our project. So we're going to take the bullet class here, and what we'll do is up in our class names here, we'll just specify bullet class. And what did I call it? WB Swiper. That's definitely not what I called it. I made it that ridiculous pagination bullet name. So let's actually make it better. Okay, so we've renamed that, and of course I'm going to have to publish here. And I think I actually need to specify some pagination. I put bullet class here, but actually what I need to do is create the pagination module, and then I will put the bullet class up inside of that. And what else do I want to do? I don't want to specify the element. GitHub Copilot's giving me some weird stuff. Bullet active class is just going to be is active like this, and put a comma there so that it works. Let's see what we get. Okay, here's some pagination. It is broken, so we got to figure out why that's not working. Let's see here. WB Swiper bullet, and that has the combo class is active, but these are just the ones that we created in Webflow. So you know what I think we need to specify the element too, which I said GitHub Copilot was wrong, but I think it's right. So element string with CSS selector or HTML element of the container with pagination. Yeah, so let's go ahead and specify the element, and I'm going to do that just by going like that, and that's going to be the pagination wrapper though. Element of the container with pagination. Yeah, so that's the one that we need, which is talking about this one. Let's make sure those match. Swiper pagination. Now let's come back here and just refresh and see if my pagination is working. There it goes. It's not clickable. We could make it clickable, but that is working, so that's really good. Let's go ahead. There's a clickable property here. True, just like that. And so since we're doing that, we can go ahead. I think the default button cursor would be a hand, but before I change that in Webflow, let's see what we get when it's clickable. It's working, but I'm not getting the hand, although sometimes my browser is like kind of buggy with showing that cursor for some reason. Anyway, so we can just set it in Webflow. Gang, love your content. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Ben Davis. Appreciate that. Let's see, back in here. Yep, I got my little finger pointer now, and we're going and we're looping. This is looking great. Let's work on getting the buttons next. So on the controls, I think I'm going to want to add some margin top. We'll just do one rem there. and I need some buttons. So I'm actually going to come to Reloom icons. I love their icon library, and we'll just search for an arrow here. Let's grab this one. Copy for Webflow. Let's do this large one. I'm gonna have to work on the styles anyways. So we got that one. Let's get the next one just while we're here. Copy for Webflow. Drop it into Webflow. Icon embed large and extra extra small. Something was amiss there. Oh no, what's going on? It's not good. Not good. Okay, we're back on track. Grab the wrapper here, set flex on that, and now we have two buttons looking to the left and to the right. Let's go ahead and start styling this so that it looks nicer. I'm going to unpin and repin this. I'm getting some horizontal scroll here, which, as we all know, nobody likes. So let's grab our section and apply overflow hidden to that. Probably better to do overflow clip now, although, like I said, this is an older version of what's it called? Client first. So I don't know if it has overflow clip, but we can go ahead and just work on that ourselves. I just don't use overflow hidden anymore. Just try to avoid it because it just, you forget that it ruins position sticky or something else, and you're stuck. Duncan says, if you set the slide items to be 3 call in Webflow, would that not solve the loading glitch? It would look a little bit better, most likely, but now you're applying a specific width to the slides. So they're going to load like that, and then Swiper is going to do some recalculation. We can go ahead and see, but what I'm worried is that if I set the slides now to a width of 30%, is this, I'm not sure if this is what you're talking about. Sorry, not 300%, 30%. Let's see what happens. Come on. All right, we're published. So I refresh. You see, like, watch it on the initial load. Maybe I can slow it down. Let's come to network, and we'll be on a, wow, I was already on fast 3G. I was doing throttling. I didn't even know it. So now we're on slow 3G. This might be too slow. I think the throttling only happens when you have the inspector open anyways. All right, so this is what it's going to look. This is like the first load. Look how terrible it is. I love it. And you saw there were like kind of 4, and then this. So what happened is the Swiper JavaScript just loaded. It resized our slides for us. It's still downloading and painting the images though. So, and we can see that here in the network inspector. So it's like, it's hard to get it perfect, even if you apply a specific width as like, this is how I want it to look initially. I'd probably recommend just hiding everything and then showing it. Now, again, like in the hero, that's not ideal because Google is going to ping you and say that your first contentful paint takes forever, or you get a bunch of layout content shift. So it's kind of a trade-off of really what you want to do here. Yeah, it depends where you're going to use it. But in general, for me, like if this was going to be on a hero and I knew I wanted to use this solution, I would just set opacity on everything to 0 and then only like maybe remove that opacity of 0 once I know that the SwiperJS code has loaded. Because yeah, I just don't want to like, I'd rather it look better than worry about my Lighthouse score. Hey, what's up, Jordy? Thanks for stopping in. Duncan says, oh, I see Ferdy. Thanks for stopping in. Hope you're doing well. On the other side of the world. That's so cool. DK Juck says, can you toggle a visible with Swiper post initialized options for the unwanted flash of content? Yes, exactly what we were talking for. So let me finish up these buttons and then, yeah, that throttle was nasty. Let me finish up these buttons, and after that, I will get into kind of the flash of unstyled content thing. So, okay, we have our buttons here. Let's go ahead and actually, let's do some attributes here. We'll call this like WB Swiper, and the value will be previous. And on this one, actually, these are embeds. These are not what I want to be doing it on. So let's go ahead. I'm going to drop in a custom element again. And this one, I want to be an HTML button. Let's give this a style of button. And why is that nasty? Let's duplicate and just call it WB Swiper button, like that. These are going to be 0. And I'm going to drag the embed inside of that. Womp. What's going on? I'm just going to reset all of these. And that's good. So if we want to change the color on the button, of course, we can do that with the text color property. And yeah, maybe we want it to be that cyan. We'll just match. Why not? And I'm going to apply that attribute here. So WB Swiper, we'll call this previous, just like that. And here we will go ahead and duplicate this button. I'm going to delete this next and drag this one in here. And we'll change this to WB Swiper next. So we have our previous on the button here and our next on the button here. And I think that's all we should need before we want to tell Swiper about our buttons. So let's publish. And let's refer to the documentation, come up to navigation. We have hidden class, next L, and previous L. So these are the ones that we're going to want to target. Default is null, but it can take a string with CSS selector or HTML element of the element that will work like the next button after click on it. So here's where we're going to use our attributes. Navigation, this is an object, and next L. So it's looking for classes here, which is fine, but we're going to give it data or just attributes, custom attributes. WB Swiper equals to next. And this, because I'm using too many double quotes here, so let's do backticks. So backticks are there, and I'll copy this, delete this, paste that, and the previous is previous like so. Got an extra bracket in there somehow. That should be all we need. Let's refresh here. And I'm still on slow 3G. Let's go to no throttling. And now we get next and previous buttons working. So we've got basic Swiper modules working. We've got Swiper loading. Let's talk about this flash of unstyled content because, yeah, it's pretty awful. So it's really hard to get what you see in Webflow to match what is going to show once everything renders on the page. But we can make some better progress probably by adding that, like, let's add a max height of 25 rem here. And once we do that, of course, we're going to have to make everything take up 100% of its parent. Because which one? So we applied the height on this one. So the wrapper now will get 100% height, and we'll set 100% width. And the slide, why am I screwing this up? Max height, I think vertical. I think, So this should be 100% of the height of its parent. And for some reason, this I set at a max of 25 rem. It's probably got something to do with me using Flexbox here. But this shouldn't matter. What if I just specify explicit height, 25 rem? We'll remove this max height. And then this is 100%. And then that's 100%. Okay, it's my images now. So let's set these to absolute and 100%, 100%. Actually, they don't need to be absolute. We'll set the fit to cover. And yeah, just so that we get something a little bit. So now, like, our height, we know that, like, we're not going to get content layout shift of our height because we've fixed that explicitly. So that is good, but it's also bad because we still have to kind of animate our slides. So what I'll do here is I'll just take WB slide here, and we can do a data attribute, something like down here, hidden is true. And so now we notice we're not going to see them, but in our code, we know that we're importing Swiper. Actually, let's walk through this. What's happening here, since I'm using module syntax, and I've got it in the head tag, the browser's going to download this right away, but it's not going to run it until the DOM content loaded event fires. So that's something special that you get with type equals module. And actually somebody pointed it out in the comments of my last video on Swiper. I was not Swiper. I was building the slider with GSAP, but I had the defer attribute here, but you actually don't need it because it's going to defer by type module anyways. So let's go ahead and we'll grab our code from our local computer or our local machine. We will parse all the HTML and CSS, and then when DOM content loaded fires, our script will run. So we know once that script runs, if we want to import Swiper, and then this is the code that's actually creating our Swiper. And then something we could do is something like document dot query selector all, and we'll get all of our slides. So what did I call this slide? WB slide. And then we'll loop over these. So we're going to say const slides equals, and then slides dot for each, and we will set the attribute, not data index. We'll set, what was it? Hidden to be false. Something like that. And I need a parentheses. And let's see if that works. So let's console log remove hidden attribute, just like this. And make sure we publish. And let's see what this loads like. I'm going to go ahead. We'll do fast 3G. Okay. So nothing's showing. We do get our buttons and stuff, of course, and you just saw the pagination show because the Swiper loaded in the pagination. And I have remove hidden attribute, but nothing actually is showing. Probably because I targeted the wrong element. WB slide. This is the one, and does it have... Let's see what's going on here. So now hidden is false. I think it's because if it has hidden any value for hidden, then is that it? Guess not. Let's see. Let's remove. So we know this ran, and we set the attribute hidden to be false, but we're still not seeing our slides. And oh, there's that one. And that's the one, that's the only one that doesn't have hidden set to false. So yeah, how do I remove an attribute? Not sure how to do that. Remove attribute. Makes sense. So remove attribute with the name of hidden. Let's try that. And refresh over here. Loading. We just saw the pagination load. Here comes an image. And what did I ruin this time? It's still loading. Let's come to... Why is it not showing all of them? We're definitely... Breakpoints are good. We're targeting the right element. WP slide. Let me double check that. Yes, WP slide here. This is the one with the attribute. But it's not getting rid of it. What did I ruin this time? Yeah, man. That's web development. Trying to think what I'm doing wrong here. The attributes are definitely being removed, and we got logged 12 times that we removed the hidden attribute. Maybe Swiper is expecting to be able to see it. The data attribute hidden might set the display to none, in which case Swiper's calculation is bad. So we can look at the, I don't know if it, look at like what width it's calculating for the list, and it looks like it's the viewport width. Let's try with an opacity here rather than that data attribute. So we'll come back here. Oh, maybe I'm explicitly setting the width and height because when I was trying to fix my, I was just applying width and height 100% to everything willy-nilly without thinking my way through it. So we've got our height here, 25 rem. That's set explicitly 100% height. This is set to auto, and that's fine because it's filling its parent. And then we have our image set to cover. See if that helps it before we change our tactic. Let's get rid of this throttling. Yeah, it seems to be better. Okay, cool. So make sure that's still working. So it was because I set the I set width 100%, I think, on the swiper slide itself. So the CSS that I had applied to the slide was overriding what Swiper wanted to do, which doesn't make sense because I'm pretty sure Swiper works by setting inline styles on the element itself. Like if we, yeah, element.style, it's so it applies an explicit width right there, but I was screwing something up. So apologies for that. I don't know exactly what it was, but this would have overridden our width 100% that we put on the slide. But it doesn't matter because it works now. So let's go back to the network and we will set this. I just want to see how it looks. There's still definitely a little bit of layout shift, which is, I don't know if we can avoid that with Swiper. All right, so we've got 3 showing, and then, but we don't have any space between yet. There's our space between, and it's downloading. So definitely, like, we're not getting a height shift, which is nice because we set that explicit height, and we're not showing the super large image because we're not removing that data attribute until everything downloads, and slow 3G is just way too slow. So let's refresh. So we navigated, sure, we loaded the page. Let's see, removed hidden attribute. So right when that code runs, we see kind of everything happen, which is right after our swiper gets initialized. Anyways, I think that's really all I want to cover today. I will put a little clonable for this in the description, and what I'll do is I'll shift the code also into Webflow. So let's actually do that right now, because that's actually also going to make just the code run a lot faster, so you're not even going to see that flash of unstyled content as quickly. Now, of course, the images are probably being cached by the browser and all that good stuff. So what we'll do is, rather than apply the source here, we'll just run our script like this. And yeah, let's see. I'm not sure if I don't think it will defer an inline script like this. I forget. Let's publish and see. If it doesn't work, then it'll just break because our stuff is not on page. Looks like it worked, so that's cool. And yeah, that was pretty fast, right? Like, so if you want to fix your layout shift, you got to get fancy. But if it's not in your hero, then you're okay anyways. So that is, and probably your hero, you would have like a full screen kind of thing going on anyways, which would be easier to manage than something where you're adjusting like multiple slides on one thing. So mobile needs some work because I'm showing one kind of at too high of a breakpoint. But other than that, I think this is a good template to get working with. You have a nice full bleed effect going on here. And I think it's a good introduction to another way to get Swiper working in Webflow. So, and if anybody has any questions, well, it's too late for that now. But thanks, guys, for hanging in and asking some questions along the way. Yeah, chat with you later. Apparently I'm still live. Am I still live? Stop streaming. There's the button. Yeah, it's not working. Uh-oh. I'm in big trouble. OBS just crashing all over the place.